Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, the show about building a healthier relationship with modern technology. Now, here are your hosts, R. Blank and Stephanie Warner.
Today, we delve into the intersection of technology and healthcare and explore the ways in which it is changing the landscape of medicine. Our guest is a physician, healthcare consultant, and serial entrepreneur with a wealth of experience. Dr. Harvey Castro is on a mission to increase awareness of digital health and drive positive change in the field. With his extensive background as a CEO, physician, and medical correspondent, he brings an innovative, unique perspective. He has developed healthcare apps, consulted for top healthcare companies, and written medical publications, all in pursuit of his passion for helping others succeed in the digital health sector. Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, Dr. Castro.
Awesome. I really appreciate being here. This is awesome. Thank you.
I like
we
the
really
energy.
look forward to this.
Yeah.
Okay, so to kick us off, I've heard you talk about the need to have a strong why.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, what's your why? And, why is it your why?
I love it. Love it. I honestly think that for me personally, that's the base of what I do and why I keep pushing and pushing and pushing and doing stuff. My personal why, it comes from a really humble beginning. I grew up in New York City in poverty. Many times didn't know if I was going to have food and didn't know actually what food stamps were. I thought that was regular money because that's what we had. And I remember going to the grocery store asking my mom, why is this different? Is it like from another country or what? And she never really explained. And growing up, food lines, getting milk and cheese, and that gave me what I call a strong why, meaning I did not want to be there ever again. And so from childhood till now, and even now, I'm still pushing and still writing more books. And each time I tell myself, okay, I'm going to stop creating companies. I have 2 more companies coming. And I literally have this conversation with my wife. I'm like, okay, I promise I'm done. I'm not doing anymore. And then I start working on something. I'm like, man, I really want to do this or that. And then I end up starting something else.
That's cool.
But I think it's that strong why that keeps pushing me to keep going.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, where in New York?
I grew up in New York City, exactly in Regal Park. That's in Queens.
Oh, okay. My parents are from the Bronx.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we had a guest on just a few episodes ago, actually, in episode 44, Thomas Helfrich, and he was that conversation was about AI, and his opinion is that AI isn't actually intelligent yet. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Oh, that's a good one. I guess it all boils down to how philosophical you want to be and how you want to define intelligence. Is it regurgitating? Probably, yeah. Is it a really just a fancy equation if you boil it down? Probably. But for our use and how we're using it, I personally would say, yeah, it's intelligent in the sense in how I'm using it. And then we can go into the philosophical part of it. But the way I see it is I have a problem. I use ChatGPT as a mentor in a way, and I know that sounds weird, but I use it as a mentor / brainstorming session. And I feel like I've done enough in my life that I can say, okay, I call BS on this one. Yeah, this is actually a good idea. And I literally call it my mentor. I just have fun with it and ask questions. And so if for some people be like, wow, that sounds pretty intelligent. And some other people are like, no, it's just regurgitating what somebody else already said. Depends how you look at it.
I say that about humans too, though. So I think that's
Right.
So yeah, you said it's about how you use it. How do you use it? And more generally, how do you think AI can be used in healthcare?
I honestly think the more we use it, the more we understand the good, the bad, and the unknown. And the more we play with it, we realize, that question didn't work. But if I ask it a different way, that worked. Maybe I should ask it this way for this particular problem. And how I see it in healthcare, obviously it's in beta, it's new. They just released the next update for ChatGPT. And here's the beauty. What I see as a problem today may not be a problem tomorrow because it's learning from everyone's mistake and it's actually getting better. The other thing is if tomorrow OpenAI opens up, no pun intended, and says, hey, we're going to download every medical bookstore that we can get a hand of and all that knowledge, and we're just going to dump it into the model, then overnight, the platform has changed. And so how I see this used, will it be ChatGPT? I see it as the following. All of us remember a Kodak, and I'm going to date myself, and all of us remember a Kleenex. And what I'm getting at is it's all brands. And so just because you say Kleenex may not be what you have in front of you, but you call it a Kleenex. And so my point is with ChatGPT, I feel like since they were the first ones to open, no pun intended again, but they opened it up and everybody's playing with it. Fast forward a year, 2 years, 3 years, people, it could be Bard, it could be Google, it could be your product, who knows? People will call it ChatGPT because that was the introduction and it just stuck. And that's what I think. And so how will it be used in healthcare? I personally don't think it'll actually be ChatGPT. I always talk about it as ChatGPT just because I'm not going to be
Shorthand.
going through the weeds, and explaining. But I honestly think it'll be something like BioGPT, or maybe someone right now is creating the healthcare GPT equivalent that it's going to have all the bells and whistles in healthcare, and it's going to address all the issues with the hallucination and all the bad stuff. So how do I see it being used? Actually, I think it's going to be amazing. Am I worried as a doctor, is it going to replace me? Not really, not at all. But I know there's that fear of the unknown, which obviously I get it. It's brand new. It's taken over so many things in our life that people are like, whoa, 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 slow this thing down. I don't want it to replace me. But to be specific to healthcare, for one of the biggest challenges as a doctor, I'm an ER board certified doctor, and you can imagine how much data I have to read and keep up with, and so much information. And that's why I exist as an ER doctor, not as a generalist, because if I had to learn everything, there's no way I could learn everything and know everything. And so doctors have found a little niche and say, I love this and I'm going to learn everything. With ChatGPT, it's going to give me, or GPT equivalent, it's going to give me the resources to keep up to date. In the future, I do see this as me opening up my email, and instead of being spam, I can go on a website and it'll tell me what I need to know for emergency medicine, what the latest articles, and I know those are journals and podcasts, but instead of having all this healthcare products, why not have one database that I can just get fed and I know? And then obviously, if I don't have enough time to consume all that information, and I'll give you a real life example. I'm an ER doc, I'm a human being. At 2 a.m, I may be exhausted and I may not be at my best as if I had slept all night and I'm ready to go. And as a patient, that's not your fault. That's my fault, but that may be the system's fault. My point is this: how nice if I could type into ChatGPT and say, hey, patient comes in with X and Y, and in the future just gives me a probability of all the different things and what things I could be thinking of. Is it replacing me? No. Am I an idiot? No. I'm just using technology to make me a better doctor, a more efficient doctor. And then the last thing, I know I get on my soapbox, I'm sorry.
I love it.
The last thing, we always talk about, doctors are looking down, typing, looking at the clock, typing, and don't really talk to the patient. It's almost like they're not spending time. And so 2 things are going on. Doctors being burnt out because they have all this administration stuff to do, and it's all this big load to see more and more and more. And then patients are getting, ironically, worse care, and it's getting worse and worse. And then doctors are retiring early, leaving medicine. And guess what? Now those doctors that are still in have to work even harder because other guys are keeping out. So fast forward, what's going to happen to our healthcare level? What can happen? So in my point, it's like, you know what? Let's educate patients on increasing our level of education in healthcare, i.e. some kind of ChatGPT equivalent. And I literally wrote a book on an algorithm to kind of help you get to that point. And then let's help doctors, because I thought, how embarrassing if a patient comes in, knows all this stuff about ChatGPT, gives me all this stuff, and I'm like, what is ChatGPT? Never heard of it. How credible am I as your doctor? Think about it. You'd be like, man, I don't change doctors. This guy doesn't even keep up with the latest. And no fault to the doctor. I mean, I'm buried in books. I know sometimes my wife's like, really? You're not following the news? And I'm like, no, my news is you tell me what's out there that I need to know. And that's my news. Like
Right.
I'm so focused in my medicine and AI.
She's your news GPT.
She is my news GPT, and she laughs. And I'm like, honey, if I really need to know, I'm sure you'll tell me that I need to know. And if I live in a weird box, like, it's my life. It's okay. Like, I like being in this little bubble that I'm just here. Like, do I want to hear of all this horrible things that are happening? Probably not. But if you want to share, go ahead. Let's talk about it. But yeah, that sounds weird. But there's just so much information. I mean, I know you guys today, if I said, how many times have you had a push notification or a call or a text? I know it's been already at midday or more. I would say you've had at least 10 or 20, at least. And so think of all that noise coming in. And on top of that, I'm trying to focus on patient care. So going back to healthcare, I really think this is the future. I think things are going to get automated to the point where you and I are having this conversation. And ironically, I did have my AI trying to transcribe everything I'm saying and doing, but put it in a patient application. What if it's just recording everything and I don't have to type anything? And what if it's just making summaries and it's showing me what the data is and the probability? And instead of me focus on typing and all this administration, what if I could just take that time and now enjoy being a doctor and
Yeah,
just talking to you?
I absolutely love the way you're talking about this, because when I first, thought about this and using AI like this in, in a doctor's office or in medical, I was like, oh, another place where people will go to get information, like Google, like, oh, I have a headache, what could it be? But the way you're talking about it, it's like using it as a tool to really amplify uh uh traditional like patient care. And I so love the idea of allowing the doctor to listen and ask questions and have that patient interaction. So the way you talk about use in the future, I think, is really exciting, and I'm so glad that you shared your thoughts on that. But to step back just to like
Yeah,
now to current,
yeah.
can you give us any real world examples of how AI has been successfully integrated into healthcare now?
Yeah. One of the first fields that it literally jumped in and nobody, I don't think even complained is in radiology. AI is helping reading x-rays, finding abnormalities, finding in the CAT scan findings. I was just talking to a colleague and he was telling me that there's this CT angio. It's basically the blood flow to your brain, and it's CT and angio meaning vessels. And basically all it is they push a little fancy dye into your veins, and then it goes into your brain, and they can take a CAT scan and see the flow of your circulation in your brain. So if you had a stroke or if you're having clots around your neck that's causing you to have stroke. What's amazing, I don't know the name of the product, I'm not promoting it, I'm just giving you the facts of how this works in healthcare. And so it literally is looking at the images before the radiologist is reading it. And if it finds anything abnormal, it's sending a text to the ER doctor saying the AI has found something, report hasn't come through, but something's abnormal, so that the doctor knows, like, holy crap, this guy needs to be on blood thinner. Instead of me waiting another 30 minutes, let me just put him on blood thinners. Let me jump on this. Let me look at things a little bit harder now. And I think, wow, amazing. Now, I haven't verified this. I know somewhere I saw something about x-rays and CTs. One of the common things we see in CTs is, oh, there's a nodule in the report and like it's probably benign, just repeat the study in a year. Well, there's this AI now that it's looking at these nodules and saying, no, that's early cancer.
Yeah,
And
I
whereas,
read that, and the article I read said that the program, at least that the article was about, is capable of diagnosing cancerous tumors 4 years before they would otherwise be diagnosed off of the
yeah,
same X-ray.
oh, I get chills. I'm
Wow.
like, wow, this is amazing. And so, AI, I know it sounds scary, but in those instances, amazing. Because again, to my earlier problem, we have so many doctors leaving the profession, and patients are getting less and less. We need something.
Yeah.
We are hurting bad. And my biggest worry is, obviously when we had COVID, people were dying in the ER because too many people were coming in and just didn't have enough manpower. I'm worried that if we're not careful, that is going to be the norm. And that worries me. I'm blessed that I'm a doctor, and it sounds horrible. I can self-diagnose and I can be like, oh yeah, probably shouldn't be doing this or that. And I can take care of my family. And I joke that when I'm 80, you're going to find me in a nursing home in a patient's room helping that patient, because I'm going to still be doctoring. Uh, but I can get away with stuff that the average person can't, because I can call the doctor if he takes care of me and I don't like his care. I'm like, dude, come on, like I know XYZ, and I can call him out on it. Be like, oh, whoa, whoa. The analogy is when a doctor sees a lawyer coming through, like, whoa, I gotta be really careful because this guy's a lawyer. I don't be sued. So
Yeah, no, I think you're touching on a lot of aspects of modern healthcare in the United States, but before and separate from AI that are creating these pressures. But in other parts of the world, there are under very large underserved areas. Another example I was reading I don't know if it was this week or last week, but people are expecting a lot of promise around AI to be able to offer healthcare services in large parts of Africa, for instance, that don't have doctors available. And so there are a lot of obviously a lot of positives. On the flip side, right, I'm wondering what maybe some of the implications are regarding disparate outcomes based on key demographics such as race and income. I mentioned episode 44 earlier, and in there we talked about how AI is naturally limited by the nature of data it's based on, as well as the natural biases of the programmers. And there are multiple instances of biased AI, and the data. So if we're using this, if we're using the data, like if we're building data off of the real world, in the real world, according to Blue Cross, up to 60% of our health is determined by zip code. And multiple studies have shown that Black patients have had their complaints and symptoms dismissed, their pain undertreated, and are referred less for specialty care. And just today, actually, I read an article about a new study published in JAMA Cardiology showing that, quote, Black and Hispanic adults in the US are less likely than white adults to get statins, medications that prevent or treat common forms of heart disease. Now, that's just a couple of examples. What can we do, or what should we do, or what is being done to try to prevent these same biases from being translated from the real world and thus the data sources into the algorithms?
Love your point. So let me backtrack just for some people that may not understand fully. So basically the problem is data in, good or bad, is data come out. And so if I'm putting data in, let's just say where the money's at. So let's say there's all this money into breast cancer and who they're studying. They're probably studying Caucasian women in certain population, but they may not be funding other research that is more prevalent in a certain different population, and let's just say African Americans and Hispanics. And so if there's not data being accumulated for these other diseases that are, let's just say, neglected compared to other diseases that have been more prevalent in a different race, then in theory, your healthcare now is focused on certain diseases and more money is going into those diseases, and other diseases are being neglected. And then on the prevention medicine side, to your example of a statin, if certain populations are not being taught that, hey, you need to be on this medicine or educated, then they won't be on that medicine, and i.e. that can be extrapolated to less life years and worse lifestyle. And so how to fix this problem? I'm gonna take a big sigh on that one. I honestly, I'm hoping there's a billionaire or Elon's listening. We need money. We as a society need.
I think Elon hates AI, doesn't he?
Actually, he funded OpenAI, and
then
he
did, huh? Okay.
Actually, we'll go on the side real quick on that one. And the skinny is he funded it with the idea that it was going to be OpenAI and that no corporation would have access to this.
And now Microsoft.
Then this company called Microsoft changed that game right there. So the rest is history. So actually, Elon's on his, he's actually in the process of creating his own GPT right now.
Of course.
So it's interesting, but it's kind of even more scary because he also has robots. And so now you got robots and this, and now it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
like,
and spaceships and satellites.
Yeah, and then putting chips in your brain. So I'm like, whoa, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, let's look for another billionaire to support you. So
yeah, but
what would the money do? I mean, money is fuel. What's the
again? Probably gonna get shot for saying this, but in theory, if we had money, me obviously being Hispanic, a minority, it would be nice to fund these diseases, to take time and look at the data and see what things are not being funded due to race. And I know that sounds racist actually, but how can we make it equal so that other populations are being represented?
But again, it's not just race. I mean, race is a common one, but
or economics,
income is a huge one. Yeah.
And so if I had billions and billions, and actually you probably don't even need that much, but if you had the billions so that you could do the research, so you could create the database, I would go on a side here and say, why not create a GPT for the underrepresented? So race, income, women, whatever is underrepresented, just create that database and focus on that database, and then actually create a GPT for it. And then now you have a GPT that is more customized for your needs, that are going to be specific to help you even better.
So how does ChatGPT differ from maybe more traditional machine learning algorithms in the healthcare field? Well, actually, does it differ? And if so, how?
See, honestly, my analogy is, I feel like this is like a shotgun. They made this product and it's just going everywhere. They're using it for marketing. They're using it for science. They're passing law degrees, all this stuff, medical degrees. But was it meant for it? No. And so I think it's, I'll use me as an example. I'm really good at a lot of stuff and it's emergencies, but I'm not really deep in a lot of stuff, because I'm only good enough for your visit to the ER, make sure you're alive, make sure I identify the emergency, and then make sure I get you to the next level, which is the specialist of X or Y. And so same thing with ChatGPT. I feel like it's really good at a lot of stuff. And some stuff, it's so good that you're like, man, this is freaking expert over here on this thing. But in reality, it may not be that good because you're not an expert. And ironically, you're asking a question from ChatGPT because you don't know. And so it's really hard for you to call BS on it because you don't know yourself, and you're asking it and you're like, sounds good to me. I'm sure it's correct. And so that's the part where I transition to hallucination. Just because I have this fancy MD behind my name doesn't mean anything. It just means that I know medicine. But does it really mean that I can put anything into ChatGPT and call BS? Unfortunately not. The reality is I can call BS on emergency medicine topics, on things that are my specialty, and I feel really comfortable in saying I can call BS on that. But can I call it on pediatric cardiologists and a certain procedure? Probably not. I could honestly say, oh yeah, that looks good on a medicine side. It makes logic. But if I talk to a real pediatric cardiologist, we'll look at it and be like, dude, no, you don't know this space. We don't even do that.
That's really interesting, and it makes me kind of wonder too. You know, we start talking about using like a GPT type of product or app. How do we, it makes me think of HIPAA, and how do we ensure privacy and the security of patients' personal and medical information?
Yeah, and
Do you have any
also,
thoughts on that?
yeah, if you could
Yeah, let's talk about that.
explain what HIPAA is.
Oh, yeah, sorry. And explain
Yeah.
what HIPAA is.
So depending what part of the world you're at, in the United States, we have this thing called HIPAA. And just to break it down, it's just simple privacy laws to make sure that me as an individual, it's not, my privacy rights are not being violated, meaning my name, my social, my address. But believe it or not, there's 18 identifiers. And can you ask me for all 18? No, I always forget a few. But one of them, it could be your IP address is violating. And the other one that I thought was fascinating is, God forbid I die today, my medical information is protected for 50 years after I'm dead. So that's how serious they take this information.
Interesting. I'm just wondering what the basis for that 50 years is.
I don't know. I wonder if it's got to do with people that are famous and that, like, oh, did you know this person had this disease, and then they just died and the family member's like, crap, it's out there. I don't know. I'm just making up. But I mean, I would think that's part of it. And so back to how can we protect HIPAA and accomplish the mission? Another sigh. I
Right.
think on the front end and the back end of patient experience, it can be used, and there's not really a worry for HIPAA, because the software can be created in such a way that it never touches that information and never interacts, meaning I can feed in like 50-year-old Caucasian male with diabetes, hypertension, blah, 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 and then give me a care plan, and it gives it to me. But at no point did I give your phone number, address, particulars, history. Now, if I'm like, oh, Mr. Smith, I was here today, and I put it into ChatGPT, then man, that's a huge fine coming to me. And believe it or not, no insurance company will cover any HIPAA violations. So you're out. That's cash. So, and it could be jail too. So it's really serious here in the US. So how to do it?
But how do you jail an AI? If they
yeah,
violate?
I would think it'd be the maker at that point, but
What if an AI made the AI?
okay.
Yeah, you could do that actually.
Okay,
And that's
come
one
on.
of the terms and conditions that you're not allowed to use on the ChatGPT, but it has been thought. So how to do it? This is how I think I would tell companies to do. You don't need a shotgun to go to the fight. You may need something minor. And my point is, I think there'll be a GPT equivalent for a healthcare system under their own HIPAA compliant
Yeah.
servers. And I think there'll be a virtual world in the sense that me as a doctor, when I log in with my particular login, it's specific and protected. And then there is the playground where ChatGPT or equivalent can talk to me and help me. And I don't have to worry, but that machine will live under the server of that particular system, and it'll never go back to the mother company, which is OpenAI. If that
Yeah, I
makes
think
sense.
it would kind of have to, because I mean, I would be weary, we'll say, if I saw it was, Meta MD, like,
Yeah, well,
I
anything with Meta
Yeah,
on it.
right, right.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I get your
yeah.
point. Yeah. So what to your view are some of the, I mean, obviously we've discussed there's a lot of benefit right now. There's a tremendous amount of potential in the future. Are there obvious limitations that you see in the model? Things that AI can't do or will never really be able to do
Oh, that's
as it comes to healthcare?
yeah, I love that question. I literally just wrote an article about, I don't know, a month ago, and I talk about the human touch. I have gone into patients' rooms and I get on the nurses never to call me by my first name, not because I need to be called doctor, not because I need the initials, none of that. It's because I believe in that authority, in the sense that when you go into a room and you see that clean white coat and the presence of a doctor, and they talk to you and say, hey, things are going to be okay, and you say with conviction, and you're there and you're empathetic, that power and that touch of talking to a patient is so strong, and it's so therapeutic that it's almost like that placebo effect where you say things are going to go well, and all of a sudden you look up and their blood pressure's going down, the heart rate's going down, they actually are getting better. And so my point is, can a computer or a really fancy robot ever give you that? I never say never, but I don't think that'll ever be the case, ever. Because as a human being, you have that empathy for another human being. And that's really hard to fake unless you make a robot and convince the human that it's really not a robot, and you tell them it's a human and you lie to them, then maybe they'll believe it if they can fake it. So maybe.
So, pardon me. Getting back to, so we started with this interview with a question about your personal beliefs, and I know another one of your personal beliefs is the importance of not getting distracted, especially like by things like Facebook and Netflix. And you brought up push notifications earlier in this interview. Can you share with our listeners some of your own personal behaviors or practices as it comes to your tech use in order to reduce distraction?
That's a good one. Another pause, another deep breath. No, I struggle with that one, and my wife gets on me. She's like, Harvey, you're all over the place. You're like a mad scientist, going here, going there, and getting distracted. And like, did I say squirrels already? I'm just kidding. But how I honestly deal with it, when I have to do a task and I have to put my mind, I try my best to always carve out hours in the day that it's a no to everyone, except for my wife and kids. If they need me, obviously I'm there for them 24/7. But I literally will put my phone down. I will turn off the notifications on my computer. And if there's anything that still pops up, like LinkedIn will still pop up, then I will close that browser. That way it's just me and whatever I'm working on. And I tell my wife, hey, I'm working on this, love. And if you need me, call me, but just know that I'm like focused, because sometimes my brain is so focused. I'm like in another world. She'll come in and I'm like, just so focused. She's like, are you mad? I'm like, no, my brain is just like, I'm intense here. I'm like really like pouring into this. And I'm having to like break for a second and just kind of come back. Just give me a second. And it's funny, we have these conversations like, man, you seem so upset. I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm just so focused because I'm trying to like tune everything out and just really be intentional. Because think how many times we get an email, a notification. Like this morning, a friend of mine added me to a 30,000 journalists email and sent a blast to them all over the world. And so today I've had like 5 or 6 emails, texts, different things to be on TV shows today and tomorrow. And it's highly distracting. It got to the point where I told my boss, I'm like, hey, if you need me, great, but just know that I may be cut here and go over there. And like literally after this, I'm meeting with a radio show to talk about eye infections and whatnot. So anyway, to answer your question, focus, turn everything off, stay on task, schedule, make it intentional, and make it a routine out of it. So you know that from X to X time, this is your time that you're going to work. And then also make time for yourself. You know, I always talk about, you know, I know I tend to be a workhorse and I want to go, 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 but there's times that I'm like, you know what? I'll tell my wife, I'm like, I'm going for a walk. I know it sounds crazy, but I just need a little walk. I need some air. I need to take some time for me. I'm like, hey, you want to go see the sunset together? Let's go for a walk. Because you need to have that intentional time for you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for me, I mean, I try to take it in the evening also, but for me, it's really early in the morning, and I take like 3 hours, and I take my time. I do my exercises. I make breakfast. Everything's quiet, and it helps me get oriented for the day. If I wake up and have to get straight to work, I go nuts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I appreciate you sharing all those tips. Dr. Castro, this has been a wonderful interview. I really appreciate you taking the time to come join us here on the Healthier Tech podcast. The book is called ChatGPT and Healthcare and is available on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. Dr. Castro, where else would you like our listeners to connect with you?
I'm on all the major social media. So LinkedIn is kind of where I like living, but I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I made it pretty easy for everyone. It's literally Harvey Castro, M as in medical, D as in doctor, and that's my handle, and you'll find me everywhere. So
Excellent.
on those things.
And we'll put those in the show notes. So thank you once again. Enjoy talking about eye infections next on the radio.
Yes, it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. You guys were awesome. You guys really did a good job. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Healthier Tech podcast. Remember to check the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned in the show. Please like and subscribe to the Healthier Tech podcast on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Get your free quick start guide to building a healthier relationship with technology and our latest information at healthiertech.co.